Coming up next on Hands on Windows, we're going to take a look at Moment 5, the latest quarterly update to Windows 11, and the first major set of new features we've gotten since 23H2.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Hands on Windows. I'm Paul Thurrott, and today we're going to take a look at Moment 5, which is a quarterly update of new features to Windows 11. It actually is available to Windows 11 22H2 and 23H2 because in our crazy topsy-turvy world, that's normal. These things are on the same code base. So if you're on Windows 11, you're supported, you're going to get all the new features. That's how that works. Before we look at the actual changes, the ones that we can look at today, I just want to remind people that Windows is supposed to have one major set of, or one major feature update every year, capital F, capital U, remember. 23H2 is the latest of those. That came out last October, November-ish. But Microsoft updates Windows all the time. So every month we get new features. In fact, since it started deploying Moment 5 in preview, we have had a Patch Tuesday where we got a handful of new features, right? So every month we get new features. Every year we get a bunch of new features. And then every quarter we get these so-called moment updates. That's an internal name. They don't actually call it that publicly. And these range in size from humongous to pretty big. This is one of the smaller ones. Thankfully, Moment 5 is. It's hard to keep this straight, but the first moment, Moment 1, was October 2022. That was the release of version 22H2. The major new feature there was the Tab File Explorer, right? Moment 2 came the following February, and that added tabs to Notepad, among other things. We got Moment 3 last May. And that was where we got the larger widgets. It used to be really thin and tall, and it got a little bit wider. You could add seconds to the clock and the taskbar. There were some other things. And then Moment 4 coincided with 23H2. It actually arrived in September last year. So all of the, well, not all, most of the 23H2 features, especially Copilot, right, the new Outlook app that everyone loves so much, and Windows Backup all appeared in that update, and then again in 23H2, right? And so the interesting thing about Moment 4 in a way was that it predated 23H2 and also applies to 22H2, right? And we're still on that train today. So as we record this, it is March. Moment 4 is rolling out in preview right now. Microsoft has publicly stated, because they're trying to meet compliance with the EU Digital Markets Act, or DMA, that this will fully roll out in stable to everybody by the end of April. So depending on when you watch this, you could have a partial installation of Moment 5 features. You could have none of them if you've chosen not to do preview updates. Or if it's late enough in the year, you'll probably have Moment 5. And we can't look at the EU stuff. One of the neat things happening in the EU right now is thanks to EU regulators. They're forcing gatekeeper companies and big tech like Apple and Google and Microsoft to not be so horrible to their customers, allow them to uninstall things, unlink services, allow third parties in ways that were never possible before. I'm really hoping to take a look at that on the podcast because some of those changes are interesting and they're going to make you want to move to Europe if you don't want to already. But for now, what I'm going to do is take a look at some of the core key Moment 5 features. There really aren't a lot of big features this time, which is kind of interesting. And there are more than I'm going to discuss here, but most of them are fairly minor. So as I record this, not all of them are available everywhere, including on this PC, but most of them. I do have most of them, so we can have something to show you at least. So we recently did an episode about widgets and the changes that came in the wake of 23H2, where you could remove the Microsoft Start newsfeed, which is a huge update to that thing. There are some other updates coming to widgets that are not available yet as I record this. So you're going to be able to create a focused widget board where you can organize widgets into categories and basically have them in groups, not so much like folders where they're inside containers, but just logically grouped in different category areas, which I think will be kind of interesting, especially if you're going to get rid of the newsfeed. So that will be kind of nice. The other really big one, or maybe the biggest one, is related to Copilot. So Copilot debuted in Moment 4, right? And I think of it as a 23H2 feature. If you're familiar with Copilot and if you've been using Windows 11, just looking at the screen, you might be able to tell that something has changed here, right? So the Copilot icon has already moved. It was just added to Windows October-ish timeframe. And then just 3-4 months later, they've moved it over to this far corner. I think they're trying to make it more visible. So they're testing different things to see how it works. But when you open this thing up, you'll notice some other changes that have occurred here. So for example, you can resize this thing. Now you can make it smaller or much bigger, which is really neat. You can configure how it appears on screen. So the way it is by default now is it's actually it's a pane that doesn't take over for the desktop. So for example, if I open up File Explorer and maximize it, this is the way it used to work. The way it is by default is it now is a panel that appears over the screen. So File Explorer is still maximized, but you can get it out from under there. It's not, it's not being pushed aside by the sidebar pane, which I think is a pretty cool feature. Also doing that when you can't see Copilot now, it's actually still running. It's still on screen. If I make this smaller, you can see it's still sitting there. It's not covering up the desktop anymore. So that's kind of a neat feature that you can toggle in different ways. So resizing, Microsoft calls this docking and undocking, but it's basically just a snap view or an overlay that appears over the screen. So I like the new style, frankly, where you can, where it doesn't change the position or ordering of windows on screen. I think this is a much better way to do that. It supports plugins now, right? So you can go in here and search is enabled by default. That gives you the web search thing. This is the thing that Microsoft kind of adds to ChatGPT, right? It's the Bing search part of it. But you can add specific plugins in here. So for example, if you go into Open Table, you could say, use Open Table to make a reservation. And I have a feeling this one does not work with Open Table, but we will try my favorite local seafood restaurant in Allentown. And instead of running against just the broader set of information that's available out in Copilot/ChatGPT, you can see here it's using Open Table, and it can, and indeed it is. Does it say? It doesn't actually say. So it's not actually offering to do it. Yeah. So I don't think Yules is an Open Table. That's why. So, but if it was, you could make a reservation this way. Is this the best way to make a reservation? Probably not. But it's this is one of a couple of different ways that Microsoft is using to extend the capabilities of Copilot. And actually, in a future episode, we're going to look at another way because there are other ways coming as well. So let me new chat that. There are more Windows integrations. They're calling these skills now. So again, a further way that they expand the capabilities of Copilot, at least in Windows. These are specific to Windows. So these are pretty weak. This is where you can say something like, configure dark mode to be on or whatever. When Copilot launched late last year, I'm just going to say no to this, but there were just a small handful of features that were related to Windows features. Coming in with Moment 5, there's going to be a bunch more related to settings, of course, things like battery saver, device information, system information, etc. A bunch of accessibility options are coming here, launch live captions, screen magnifier, open the text size page and settings, etc. Some device information stuff. You can toggle Wi-Fi or see what Wi-Fi networks are available, connect to a different Wi-Fi network, display your IP configuration, etc. That stuff is actually not available on this computer right now. In fact, I've never seen that on any computer, but it is coming. And to me, that's kind of the weakest part of Copilot. I think the really cool stuff in Copilot occurs everywhere, out of the web, etc., creating images and so forth. So, like I said, in a future episode, we're going to look a little more closely at what's going on with Copilot, but for now, just know that the version that's available here in Windows is getting better. Let me close that guy. If you are familiar with Snap, which was a feature that debuted in Windows in Windows 8, I guess. Actually, there were some Windows 7 Snap type features, but Windows 11 dramatically expanded on the capabilities of Snap. There were things like Snap layouts, and which are those little boxes you get when you mouse over. Snap groups, where you have a group of apps that are in a layout and it's kind of saved as a thing. You can kind of break that layout up, but then go back and get it back. That's kind of neat if you have Windows arranged a certain way and like to do that sort of thing. What they've added here in Moment 5 is a new Snap suggestions feature. So it's dynamic and it changes based on what apps are available and the types of sizes and shapes that make sense for those apps. So that's why I've opened a couple of things. So if I mouse over this maximize restore button, you'll see some suggested layouts. And this one here, so you've got your standard layouts down here. This is a side-by-side with the Edge window. So if I select that, you can see it just automatically goes there. I don't have to use Snap Assist, right, to determine what will be in the other side. And same thing here. If I choose this one, we're going to get this notepad window on the left and then those two other application windows stacked automatically. So if it works out that these are the layouts you want, you're in pretty good shape. If they're not, you can just use the manual Snap. The other interesting thing here is that, that if you drag the window around, you get this guide at the top. And this also offers this Snap suggestion feature. It's almost always completely different from what you get when you mouse over the Restore Maximize button. I don't know why. I don't believe, for example, like that layout with File Explorer. Oh, actually, it is one of them. Okay, it's not always the case, but you don't get the two. You only get one, so you can do it that way as well. So that's kind of inconsistent. I don't quite understand why, but it is a little bit different. Okay, we also have some cool phone link features coming for people using Android. As always, you get a better experience on Android than you do with the iPhone. One is available today. One is coming soon, but I think I can emulate it pretty effectively. So what you need, let me go into settings just so you can see something has changed here. There used to be a phone setting, like a top-level setting. And now what they have is this mobile devices interface. And I think this is tied to the fact that Microsoft is going to be adding more functionality with mobile device integration and Windows. But for today, it works mostly like it did before. There is a feature called Cross-Device Experience Host that you need to install before you get these two new features. I've already done that, so you don't see it here, but if I hadn't, there would have been a button to install. It happens pretty quick. You don't have to do a reboot. It just basically says allow this PC to integrate with mobile devices. But once you've done this, it will integrate those two new features I was talking about. So the first is you've got your phone. It's connected via Bluetooth, right, to your computer, and you take a picture with it. If you're within Bluetooth range of your computer, you can get a pop-up that will say, hey, you just took a picture. Do you want to do something with this? So I will do that. We'll see, this will be a live demo. It'll be interesting. So I'm going to take a selfie. And smile like a goof. Put that thing down, and we should see, a little guy here, right? So we get this banner notification. It says new photo. Select here to view, edit, or share the photo via mobile devices. Now, my expectation is that you'll be able to configure this so that when you click this, it does different things. But today, there is no configuration. It just opens in Snipping Tool, right? Which is that screenshot tool that we talked about fairly recently. You could edit from Paint here. You could save it to your computer. Right now, this is it just pulled it live off the camera off the phone, I should say. This is not saved to your PC yet. It can be, right? But you could just save it. I'll just put it on the desktop here. And then from there, you could say, well, I want to, open this with Photos or whatever other app, you have different apps, whatever it might be. And then you can go in here and edit this normally, if that's what you want to do. So that's kind of a neat thing, assuming you're anywhere near your computer. The other capability that is related to this is the ability to use your Android-based phone as a webcam. So if you have a Google Pixel phone, I think one of the more recent, actually it's probably any supported Pixel, or I think the latest Samsung Galaxies do this now as well. When you connect to the PC with a USB cable, you'll get an option in the notification shade. Instead of using it to transfer files or just to charge the phone, you can use it as a webcam. Like I said, this ability is not there quite yet, but I do have an older Pixel here. And if I connect that, instead of the Samsung I was using before, I can bring up that shade, like I said, and say, well, instead of doing that file transfer or whatever, I will use it as a webcam. And to see what that might look like, we can bring up you would probably use Zoom or Skype or something, but I will use the Android webcam instead as the camera. So you can see it's kind of moving around here, but it's using the back camera. And not that there's anything interesting in my office, but you can move it around that way. And, it's a little R2D2 guy. But just use your phone as a camera, which is really cool because most of us always have our phone with us. So like I said, not technically available in Windows 11 yet, but by the time you see this video, it almost certainly will be. It will be available by the end of April at the latest. And then one small other change, because I'm a huge fan of this functionality, is related to Windows Share, right? So Windows Share is kind of this weird bifurcated experience right now. If I go into a folder like Pictures, which in this case is syncing with OneDrive, you know that if you right click and choose Share, you get the OneDrive share experience, which is actually kind of limited and doesn't have a lot of options. But if you go to a folder that isn't backed up by OneDrive and do the same thing, you'll get what I think of as the superior kind of Windows share experience, right? That will vary depending on what type of file you're looking at, right? So we see different email addresses, things I could email. I don't have a lot going on with this particular test account, so these are just emails I've received, I guess. Whatever laptops happen to be nearby, this is a different laptop I have out in a different room, and then different apps, right? So there's a couple of things that have changed here. One is that the way sharing is supposed to work is that if you create an app, whatever it might be, a text editor, an image editor, whatever it might be, you can associate yourself with different file types or actions in the system. So when someone tries to share a photo, you could say, well, I can edit that photo, or if I'm Instagram, I could share that photo. And it's a good idea. The problem is almost none of these apps do that. So Microsoft has taken it upon itself to add some of these apps manually. So when we see Instagram here, it's not because Meta decided to support this feature, it's because Microsoft did. So they've added Meta to this. Same thing if I go to like a text file like this and share, you will see WhatsApp will appear. And again, same thing, same company actually, but not Meta that decided to do this, but Microsoft. And so over time, I think we're going to see this share using an app part of this expand fairly dramatically. The other thing that they've added, which is subtle, but kind of an interesting thing, is if you go into settings and find nearby sharing settings, which I believe is here in system. Yeah. There's always been these kind of settings, who am I going to share with? Is this going to be on or off? Where do I save files to, et cetera? There was always been a rename option here, but in the past, when you clicked it, it would actually go to System, About, and then this thing would pop up. And you can change the name of your PC this way, but you have to reboot for the name change to take effect. So what they've done is they've made it possible to just rename your PC as it appears in nearby sharing, right? Because the problem is if you have a bunch of laptops like I do, they all say Paul's laptop, and you can mouse over to figure out which one's which, but you can actually just go in here and give it a name. I've already done it. So I call this one Paul's Mini PC because I'm using a little computer here, and that makes it more obvious which computer you're sharing with. So that's also a new feature in Moment 5. Like I said, there's actually a lot more, but I think if you think back on some of the features we just looked at, I mean, nothing earth-shattering, nothing major, but dozens of small features. There are other things. There's more AI features coming to the apps. There's a generative erase feature, for example, coming to Photos, which looks really interesting. Not available as we record this, sorry. Lots of accessibility changes. But again, nothing major and earth-shattering. Just a neat collection of features deployed or coming out this quarter. And as we head into the second half of the year, eventually, we'll be getting an even bigger one as part of 24H2, right? So it's kind of never ends. So that's where we're at with Moment 5. Good luck getting it. I should mention too, actually, if you do want to try to get on the train early, don't forget to go into Windows Update, check this box, get the latest updates as soon as they're available. Check for updates, check for updates, check for updates. Unfortunately, it's a little sporadic and it's unclear, but as I record this, these features are all available as part of a preview, cumulative update, which you can get automatically just by turning this on. But it helps to check every once in a while because, they come out sporadically. So thank you for watching. I'll be back next week with another video. We have new videos for Hands on Windows every Thursday. You can find out more at twit.tv/HIW. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you especially to Club TWiT members. Appreciate you so much. I'll see you next week.